President Biden recently called Hurricane Milton the storm of the century, and that might even be an understatement. Milton is currently ripping its way across the southeast U.S. It may be hurricane season, but this is no ordinary storm. The hurricane intensified rapidly into a Category 5, becoming one of the most powerful ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin. With sustained winds reaching up to a huge 180 miles per hour, Milton is currently barreling towards Florida's west coast, threatening to make landfall as a catastrophic Category 3 or 4 hurricane. The storm's projected path put the Tampa Bay area directly in its crosshairs, a region that hasn't experienced a direct hit from a major hurricane in over a century. The intensity of this hurricane, coupled with the vulnerability of the landing zone, make this one of the most dangerous storms of all time. It's also likely to affect areas recently decimated by Storm Helen, causing more damage and ruining more lives in an area still trying to recover from disaster. But why is Milton so dangerous? The last major hurricane to directly hit Tampa Bay was in 1921, over a century ago. This rarity makes Milton an unprecedented threat to the region. Compared to recent destructive hurricanes like Helen, which caused untold amounts of damage and the deaths of over 200 people, with the death count still rising, Milton's impact on Tampa Bay could end up being even more catastrophic, just 2 weeks after Helen ripped through the area. The intensity of Milton and its projected path is very similar to the now infamous 1935 Labor Day hurricane, one of the strongest storms ever to hit the United States. This was all foretold. The Hurricane Phoenix simulation, which first took place in 2010 and then repeated in 2020, showed how a Category 5 hurricane hitting Tampa Bay would play out. It predicted extreme destruction, with thousands of people missing and hundreds killed. The simulation estimated that there could be property damage of $200 billion in 2010. This increased to $300 billion when it was rerun in 2020. As the storm rages, we are still to see the true level of destruction it will cause and how many lives it will rip apart. More will become clear in the coming days and weeks. The intensity of this storm is terrifying. It has set new records in Atlantic hurricane history. As it grew offshore, the storm's sustained winds reached 180 miles per hour. That makes it one of the strongest ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin. This dwarfs anything in recent memory. Milton's central pressure dropped as low as 897 millibars, which is the lowest observed in any Atlantic hurricane since Hurricane Wilma in 2005, and the 5th lowest ever. In just 15 hours, the storm's winds went from 90 miles per hour to 180 miles per hour, doubling at a rate that some meteorologists have described as insane. It's well outside the current threshold to be classed as rapid, which only needs an increase of 35 miles per hour in 24 hours. Milton simply makes current expectations and predictions on hurricanes look bizarrely incorrect. Even compared to other recent Category 5 storms, Milton stands out. It surpassed Hurricane Rita in 2005 as the strongest hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico and became one of only 9 Atlantic hurricanes to reach wind speeds this high. It went from being a standard tropical storm to one of the biggest Category 5 hurricanes on record in less than 2 days. We just haven't seen anything on this scale before. It isn't just the storm itself. That's just one side of the puzzle that makes it so dangerous. A storm that remains at sea, after all, isn't so dangerous at all. It's where it makes landfall that can make the difference, and Tampa Bay stands on the edge of catastrophe, right in Milton's path. Tampa's probably the worst place for a hurricane to hit. The bay's low-lying terrain, shallow water level, and its position on Florida's sloping continental shelf all make Tampa one of the most vulnerable places in the southeast USA for storm-caused disasters. Surges can be worse here than anywhere else on the coast. The shallow water is easily whipped up by strong winds. Coastal areas can be easily overwhelmed and flooded out, sometimes in just minutes. It isn't like Tampa Bay is a low-population area either. Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg are all within Pinellas County. This is the most densely populated part of Florida. That's right, it isn't Orlando or Miami. Pinellas County has more residents per square mile. More than 51,000 people have moved into the area between 2022 and 2023 alone. This boom in the area's population has pushed development along the coast and on barrier islands, placing more people and property at risk from an unprecedented storm surge. A surge like the one Milton is throwing at the coast right now. Tampa, not experiencing major storms regularly and not facing a storm of this magnitude in over 100 years, is unsurprisingly poorly equipped to deal with this one. Roads and urban structures can funnel the water flow, making areas that can quickly become flooded through excess rain alone. Flood protection projects are underway, but are still months from being completed. Unfortunately, too late to help reduce the effects of this storm. Tampa Bay has ridden its luck for over a century, but that luck has finally run out as Milton hits the bay hard. Also on the path of this gigantic storm, North Carolina. Just weeks ago, the state, particularly in its western areas, was decimated by Storm Helen, which caused over 100 reported deaths. It also caused a huge amount of destruction in the area, with important infrastructure like water and electricity supply lines and residential areas devastated, caused by record levels of rainfall caused by the storm. As Milton approaches, it threatens to compound the damage already done by its similar cousin and completely derail the recovery process, which is still ongoing in North Carolina. Stopped as it braces for Milton's impact. The arrival of Milton could easily reflood areas that are only just beginning to dry out. After Helen, over 460 North Carolinians suffered from power outages, with Duke Energy reporting significant damage to its power infrastructure. Milton could now lead to a complete collapse of the power grid in affected areas, possibly across multiple states, which could leave millions without electricity for extended periods of time. The last piece of this grim picture is that people simply have not been able to get out of their homes in time. The scale of evacuation orders in place for Hurricane Milton is on a scale never seen before. Over 5.5 million people have been urged to leave Florida's western coast, making it one of the largest evacuations in state history. There are disaster plans in place, but on this scale, it becomes almost impossible to manage. Roads have been at a standstill in some places, with tailbacks of slow-moving traffic becoming the norm, as a huge portion of those 5.5 million people try to get out of the disaster zone before it's too late. Even though tolls have been removed to help the flow of traffic, and the highway shoulders have been opened to create additional lanes, the sheer volume of evacuees has totally overwhelmed the roads of Florida's western coast. Many people have found themselves unable to leave their homes at all. Gasoline shortages are leaving people with no transportation out of the area, and even if they could leave, they are finding there is simply nowhere for them to go, no safe place to stay. Some residents have told the media they feel trapped. Others, especially people with limited financial means or special needs, just fall outside of the evacuation protocols entirely. As Milton lands, thousands of people may remain completely stranded and helpless. When the storm does finally pass, and it will pass, it will leave behind devastation, that much is certain. But it is the economic impact that could break all records. Estimates have predicted that about 2.8% of the US GDP lies in the storm's path. That's a huge chunk of a colossal economy that's at immediate risk. Damage costs alone are expected to reach tens of billions of dollars, which includes property damage and the loss of businesses in the affected areas. Longer term, the effects could get out of hand. Key sectors like tourism, construction, and retail are likely to face dire circumstances for the rest of the year, and the lasting effects could rumble on through 2025. Gulf region oil extraction might slow or shut down entirely for a period of time. The whole economy of the southeast US could be completely wiped out if the storm hits as hard as expected. This raises the question surely on everyone's lips. Is this a freak storm? Or is Milton simply a sign of what's to come? A signal that climate change is making our storms more and more severe and more dangerous? It cannot be denied that climate change is one of the factors causing hurricanes like Milton to intensify as quickly and as significantly as this storm has. As global temperatures rise, so do the waters in our oceans, which provide the energy storms feed off to grow larger and more powerful. This is especially true in the Gulf of Mexico, which has experienced record-high water temperatures, a major reason why Milton has become the megastorm it has before hitting the coast. The rise in sea levels caused by ice cap melt and thermal ocean expansion make storm surges an even bigger danger, and warmer air temperatures mean that more moisture can be held in the atmosphere, causing higher levels of rainfall during storms. Milton might feel like an outlier, a storm more powerful than those we should expect, but predictions show that this may become the norm. Studies have estimated that hurricanes aren't likely to become more frequent in the near future. Before you breathe a sigh of relief, however, what is likely is that the hurricanes we do experience will become more and more intense, with the real possibility that even more powerful hurricanes could emerge in the coming years, rapidly escalating just like Milton has. To everyone in Milton's path, stay safe out there. Thank you for watching.